Hi YouTubers, you're now on the Alric Show channel. Subscribe, share with your friends and your family. We have stories to make you laugh and stories of change. Subscribe and share. Enjoy. Alric Show. Welcome to the Alric Show. There's an outcry for justice in almost every crevice of the world, and particularly in Jamaica. For some, they have been lucky. For others, not so lucky. Today we have Isat Buchanan, attorney at law, human rights and criminal lawyer, right here with us on the show. Mr. Buchanan, thank you very much, sir. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. These days in Jamaica, we're hearing a lot about inmates in the prison system who they have not even gotten a day in court.
Correct.
What's happening?
Well, there is something called the pleasure. I'll just start with pleasure. It's a peculiar word because in our prison system, at one point, persons who were deemed unfit to plea, that is, unable to say guilty or not guilty before the court because of mental conditions, they were held at the Governor General's pleasure.
The Governor General's pleasure. That's an interesting term.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very interesting in light of that badge that's also controversial, which they have now. The Governor General has now said he no longer is wearing. That's with the angel Michael stepping on the neck of what is supposed to be the devil.
Get off my neck.
Yes. So the pleasure of the Governor General is unconstitutional. And so the Privy Council, which is the highest court in Ireland, our final appellate court, would have said that it must be substituted with being held under the court's pleasure. Nonetheless, the problem with that is there is a breakdown in communication, naturally, between the state actors, that is the court, the police force, the prison,
and correctional services.
The prosecution's office as well, in terms of bringing the matter forward to check if the person is fit to plea, as well as so that they can have their constitutional right to have a fair hearing in reasonable time.
But what needs to be done, though, to bring everyone in one accord? Because it's something that is rampant throughout a lot of entities in Jamaica, where communication is just, you do something here, then you have to go somewhere else.
Yes.
But what can be done now so that everything can be in sync, so that we don't have these things happening for the next 50 years?
You know, what I will say is that the public needs to care. The public is never aware of that the power lies with the people.
I think so much of us, the public, we are afraid of the justice system because for a lot of people, I think they feel that the system is more against them than for them.
Well, that is a misconception. You have, knowledge is power, they say, but if nothing else, the public needs to be aware of what is in the Constitution. As soon as you start to read the Constitution, you realize that the Constitution empowers the people.
No, there's a recent case.
Yes.
George Williams.
Correct.
Tell me about that case and when you took on that case and why it was in your best interest to help this man.
Okay, well, to be fair, Indicom, they issued their report and it included the unfortunate passing of Noel Chambers, a Rastafarian who was locked up in excess of 40 years, or 40 years, 38 to 40 years thereabout. He died in prison at Tower Street. And what is significant is that he never had his day in court. The minute I heard that and reading the report, I realized that there were at least 150 persons who are in a similar situation as George, as Noel Chambers.
Over 100?
Yes, over 100.
That's
which is they're deemed unfit to plea. They have mental issues, and so for whatever reason they are not being brought to court, or certainly my position is none of those persons are to be in a penal institution. It serves no purpose and it is cruel and inhumane.
Wow.
So in looking at that, it's Stand Up for Jamaica, led by Miss Carla Galato. She reached out to me and said that she would like me to take on a couple of these cases. George's name came up. I went to see George, and the minute I spoke to him, he was a person of sound mind, save and except for he's old.
What struck you about George? Beneath the layers of this man, being in a system, in prison for 50 years, what struck you about this man, really?
More than anything,
yeah,
that man could be my father. He's also a Rastafarian. He's the humblest human being you'd ever find. He's very passive, and he is helpless. That was the reality. But when I spoke to him, he was a walking historian.
Yeah? What are some of the things that you were sharing?
He was aware of the case of Mary Lynch.
Yeah,
Famous case. I didn't know that case.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you. Earl Pratt.
I've heard the name Pratt.
He did say that he was at the institution when he watched Earl Pratt walk out, and he wanted to know why he was still where he was. In talking to him, and when he said that he did not want to die in prison, and he's been trying, he wants to go home, he wants freedom. And I looked at him and I said, listen to me, the next time you see my face, you'll have your day in court.
He said to you that, I don't want to die here. I want to get out.
Yes.
What did that mean for you in that moment?
It meant to me that I knew that his situation was urgent.
Yeah.
He's 73. Every day that he spent in prison, he ought not have spent.
What was he convicted for?
Not convicted. He was never convicted. He was arrested and accused of murder. The accusations are allegations, and the Constitution of this country says it is your constitutional right to be cloaked in the presumption of innocence. You are innocent until proven guilty by your peers. And so whatever anybody thinks, my condolences to the family of the victim. Mr. Williams, nonetheless, is an innocent man. And he spent 50 years in prison without going before a jury of his peers to determine if the allegations against him were true. That never happened. So when the day he walked out of prison last week, he remains innocent, as if it never happened, regardless of what anybody thinks or how they spin it. He's a free man. He's not under the jurisdiction of the court. And whether it be an apology from whichever state actor, an apology is not enough for 50 years taken away from his life.
We take a break. When we come back, we talk more with Isat Buchanan about the justice system here in Jamaica. Welcome back to the show. We continue our conversation with attorney at law Isat Buchanan as we talk about persons who are locked up in the prison system without being convicted for over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40, 50 years. And it's just a sad reality that needs urgent attention. How are you and your team members and the various social groups are trying to let this issue become urgent attention for our government?
Well, the first thing is intervention and the cry for the public to intervene. Intervene as in that we do not let this situation die down. It's not something that must be given the usual treatment of the 9-day wonder. I must say that it was the media and the common man that was instrumental in having the matter so urgent that I would say that the outcome in George Williams certainly was a cry from public pressure.
When you heard the story of George Williams and when you met the man, Did you actually believe that you could help this man to be free?
I will say this, I always believe
Right.
that if your human rights are violated, that there is a remedy and an avenue. So I was confident that he would be free. What surprised me was the swiftness or the urgency.
It took like how many days?
7 days.
That's God's perfect number.
God's perfect number.
Yeah.
And when I said to him, I said, the next time you see me, you will have your day in court. Did I know that he would have had his day in court? No. But I was confident that it was most egregious and unacceptable.
What did you see in his eyes when you say to him, you'll have your day in court?
He didn't believe.
Why would he believe after 50 years?
That's exactly the point. But nonetheless, I said it to him and I said, look at me. Then look at my face, because the next time you see me, you have to identify me in a courtroom. And I made the application.
What was that application about? What are some of the words that you remember, the points that you put forward for this man? I know, so passionate were you? Take me into that court. I want to go there with you now, sir. Take me into that moment when you stand there. I don't know if it's what I see in the movies. So
the application, it's a habeas. It's called a habeas corpus application, which is to bring the man up to the court to investigate why he's in prison.
Yes.
It can be done orally. I chose to put it in writing. The importance of that is you can ask a judge and the judge says no. That's all orally, but for the record purposes, because in my mind I was prepared to take this matter to the Privy Council.
Yes.
That's where my mind was.
Yes.
And so when I started, I said, if that's where it has to go, so everything said, everything done must be put in writing. So if I ask the judge something and she says no, I said, please put it in writing. I need the response in writing.
So many students.
And to establish the record.
So many students who are now studying law. Yeah. I'm sure they will have this to look at as one of the prime example of successes.
Yeah, certainly if you study criminal law at the University of the West Indies, you'll come across me and my colleagues at the university, because I tutor there, I'm an adjunct lecturer there. So the students, we always speak about these things, and I am confident.
Yeah.
I've heard it said in social media spaces that a final year law student could have done what I did. And I agree, because I teach most of them.
Yeah, of course, of course, yeah.
But what is important is, we have to use the law to enforce the rights
of citizens.
Citizens. But in particular, persons incarcerated. There's a perception that they have no rights. That is not true.
I wanted to know, what was that power line that you put forward for George Apicor? The power line, you remember?
So the power line, I just remember that the grounds that we asked for was to say, if the prosecution did not have the file, it must be dismissed for want of prosecution. So the court had the inherent jurisdiction to do that. Similarly, that the prosecutor had the power to enter a null prosecute, which she actually did. But also the most powerful thing in that whole application was the affidavit of George himself. His words, I don't want to die in prison. And I have great respect for the Honorable Justice Stephanie Jackson Hazley.
Right.
She read the affidavit and she said, I'm troubled, I'm concerned. I want to see him. Bring him before me, which is the effect of the habeas corpus. And she brought him that day, and the court waited on George.
What was his reaction when when George heard you're a free man?
Freedom. He said freedom. He said freedom. But he was alert. The judge said, Mr. Williams. He said, hey. That's the first time he spoke. And said, you're free to go. I don't think he appreciated what that was. I asked him, I said, what is it? What's the first thing you're going to do? He says he wants rice and butter.
Oh.
His simplicity is humbling, but beautiful. Yes.
We take a break. When we come back, we talk more with Isat Buchanan, his personal experiences, and why he's so passionate about helping the helpless.
Alric Show.
Welcome back to the Alric Show. We're talking with Isat Buchanan, human rights and criminal lawyer. He himself was convicted years ago in prison. Now he's helping people to come out of prison. We talk more with Isat right now. Isat,
Yes.
you would have had your personal experiences with the prison system
Yes.
in Jamaica and overseas.
Correct.
Help me to understand your early years, what happened, and how this has fueled you to ensure that the ordinary man can get his freedom and can get justice.
All right, so I will start by saying for the early years that there is a perception in our culture and places around the world. There's an urgency to make young people become adults. As soon as you're 16, if you're tall, you turn man.
Wow.
Whether you have the mental aptitude for it, you're grown, and society pressures you and treats you as such.
Wow.
For those of us who are not participating in that fast lane trajectory of what it is or the concept of being a man,
Yeah.
it doesn't change the perception of even law enforcement. So a 16-year-old is a child. A 17-year-old is a child. 18-year-old is a teenager. That's why it's still 18, 19, notwithstanding being an adult.
Right.
When I was 17, I found myself in trouble with the law. And I'm saying found myself in trouble with the law because I was young, going to the United States, thought what I had was money, and I was stopped by a police officer, taken into a room, searched. 6 hours later, what I knew was money was said to be drugs. I told the court who gave it to me, where they lived,
So it was,
what.
so it was given to you by someone
Yes.
to take overseas.
Correct. And the judge didn't want to hear it. From there, I had an attorney who, I don't think he was a very good attorney, but Bert Samuels intervened. And if not for Bert Samuels, situation would have been much worse.
Could have been a George.
I could have been, might, never know.
Yeah, could have
but
been
what was
George.
important is after that experience, I went to the United Theological College of the West Indies. Said I'm going to be a pastor. Then I discovered that that probably wasn't what I wanted to do, and I changed to philosophy. But on the same weekend, 3 years later, I find myself in the United States. I'm detained because I am said to be a kingpin, a big drug dealer. And at the end of the indictment, I just know that I was convicted for conspiring with myself and was given a 10-year sentence because a police officer in this jurisdiction was given a green card to come to America to say what happened in my juvenile case. So they never had those records, and I was sentenced. My time was doubled because of that. And while in jail, that's the first time I discovered that I was not black, but a nigger.
Wow.
It's the first time I started to see there were differences in societies and levels of human beings.
Wow. How old were you?
20.
Wow.
I was just 20.
Describe those moments in prison. What was it like for you as a young man? What were you thinking?
Wow. I'll start by saying that I communicate with God. I communicate with God completely disconnected from how the Christians do it and how they say you're supposed to do it. I said, God, what is it that I need to learn? And what is it that I need to do? It had to be something because it made no sense to me.
What did you start to learn?
I went to the law books immediately because I learned one thing. My attorney who represented me, he was white, didn't care. I fought my appeal until the day I came home. And before that, I was able to assist other persons and they were getting remedies from the court, but I wasn't getting it. But I knew it was for a purpose.
How much of yourself did you see in George?
It's a good question because every time I interact with my criminal clients, it's automatic.
It's like you're living your own experience again.
Over and over. And I communicate with them and they will tell you, if you meet anyone that I represent, I always tell them, only you can know why you are here.
What is your hope for the justice system on all levels here in Jamaica?
So certainly that the Constitution is at the forefront of all state actors when dealing with the citizens. The prison system is in a state currently where it ought not to be in operation.
Sad reality.
Any revision of the prison system must take into account the Mandela Rules. It's extensive. The United Nations and international bodies have adopted the approach, the Mandela approach. The respect. We need bathrooms for the inmates. We need programs, realistic programs that can deal with the individuals to improve their lives. My hope would be that if a young person did find himself in trouble with the law, that the result after prison...
He come out better than he went in?
...would be, I'm going to say, would be Isat.
Oh, powerful.
Would be attorneys and doctors. And we understand that a mistake is just that. We have one life. But one mistake is not to end it.
Mr. Buchanan, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
For sharing with us on this show. And I just want to thank you so much for helping so many persons who they just can't help themselves. They don't have the resources. They don't know nobody that they can turn to. But you are here and you're doing the best that you can. You can't save everybody, but you're doing the best that you can in your little way. And I want to thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you too for purposing in your heart as well for the experiences that you have had to make a difference for yourself. And that is now impacting so many lives. And for giving and for helping George Williams to get his freedom. I'm looking forward to many more cases and many more people being freed. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I want to thank Isat Buchanan for sharing with us today on The Alric Show. The Alric Show will be back next week.
Alric Show.